Hey guys, welcome. This is 6.1 review video, and let's get started. What figure is this? So you're going to be given points on your quiz, and you're going to have to go ahead and figure if this is a parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, or square. Now, I already graphed it here, but once you graph this, you might be able to just take a look at it and say, I think this could possibly be a rectangle, square, rhombus, or parallelogram. So I'd always actually start out with what you think it looks like. That's usually a pretty good indicator of what it might be, and try and rule out things that you think it can't be. Well, this one's pretty easy, and I made this one easy for a reason, and the reason is I want to make sure that we don't get too caught up in what the distance formula and all that stuff is, and think more about what we're actually principally trying to get done. So let's go ahead. I'm going to write this little box, and this is going to help me out. By looking at this picture, I'm looking at this and I can easily see that the sides don't look all congruent. So I'm automatically going to go ahead and say a square is probably not the right answer. This is me just thinking out loud, and I think a rhombus probably is not the right answer. So it could be a rectangle or parallelogram. I'm not 100% sure. The way we could do this is we could find the lengths. So let's go ahead and find the length of AB and find the length of BD. Notice they're consecutive sides. If these two are equal to each other, there's a good chance the opposites are equal. Now, the good part about this is I actually don't have to use the distance formula. I can count. So if I count from A, starting here, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. So AB is 5 units. BD is 1, 2, 3 units. So here I can tell you for sure I know it's not a square and I know it's not a rhombus because all sides would have to be congruent. So this can't be true. Well, let's just double check. CD should be the same as AB and AC should be the same as BD. So let's go ahead and check those work as well. So CD we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, that checks. And AC is going to be 1, 2, 3. So here I have opposite sides are congruent. So opposite sides are congruent. Our opposite congruent sides is what we have. So that makes me believe this is either a rectangle or perhaps just a parallelogram. Now, how can I tell if this is a parallelogram? Well, I'd have to have opposite slopes. Well, if I look here, I rise 0 and I run and I rise 0. So I know my slopes are already opposite slopes are congruent, because the slope of AB is 0 over 5, which is just 0, and the slope of CD is also 0. The slope of AC, it's going straight up, so I rise 3 over run 0, so there's actually no slope. So AC has no slope, and BD has no slope. So my opposite sides are also parallel. Okay, so we have my opposite sides are parallel. So we know this is a parallelogram for sure. So I have to write that as my answer. This is a parallelogram. Is it a rectangle? Well, we can actually look right here and see if this is a rectangle. Where A and B meet, so here's AB, I'm going to make it really thick, and BD. Do they form a 90-degree angle? If they do, I know this is a rectangle. Do they have opposite reciprocal slopes? Well, 0 and undefined are opposite reciprocals. So this, in fact, does create a 90, which tells me this is a rectangle. Okay? I already concluded it can't be a square or rhombus because all my sides are congruent, so I know I'm just left with a parallelogram and rectangle. You can do the same thing. Okay, mine was a little easier because I didn't have to use distance formula. Alright, moving on. Alright, we're given a parallelogram here. And given this parallelogram, we're going to go, and use a little bit of math. So BEC is 55. So I'm going to put 55, and we're talking about, we're talking about degrees. We're talking about angles. And BAE, this angle here, is 50 degrees. And my question is, what is EDC? EDC is this angle right here. What's this angle going to be? Okay, well, let's go ahead and use some of our knowledge about a parallelogram. Now, we know that we have parallel sides, and we have vertical angles and all that good stuff. So if this is 55, I know this is 55. It's like kind of solving a puzzle. And these two are a linear pair and these two are a linear pair. So 55 plus what gives me to 180? Okay, well if I add 5, that would be 60. So if I had 25, that would be 80. So I should have 125 here. Now, if I could find this angle here, right here, then I could find my answer to EDC. Well, notice that this angle here and this angle here are alternate interior angles because they're unparallel. So this is 50 in here. So we get 50 plus 125. So 125 plus 50 is going to equal 175. So what does this angle right here equal? Well, it sounds kind of weird, but it's going to equal 5 degrees because this makes a triangle, and triangles have to add to 180 degrees. So the answer is 5 degrees. Okay? And although the picture, obviously, we don't want to take the picture as to scale, but it is 5 degrees. All right. In this next one here, we have a rhombus, I believe. Let me just double check. By the way, school's out. Yes, so here we have a rhombus. Okay, so we know rhombuses are special in the fact that all their sides are congruent. And we have some additional information about rhombuses, but we'll get there in a second. Okay. First of all, let's put in the information we know. We know PLS, so this angle right here, is going to be 2 plus x. And then I know PLA, which is the whole angle, is going to be equal to, whoops, let's erase that, that got kind of messy. The whole angle is equal to x plus 10. Find x. So that's our first goal, and then we're going to find something else. But first we got to find x. Well, if you recall, we know that the rhombuses, the diagonals bisect the angle. So these two angles are congruent. So that means 2 plus x is half of the angle, x plus 10 is the whole angle. So that means 2 plus x, whoops, that means 2 plus x right here is only half the angle. So I can't just set these two equal to each other. I would have to double this or multiply it by 2. Okay, so if we do that, we get 4 plus 2x equals x plus 10. Let's subtract this x over, meanwhile subtracting the 4 at the same time, and we're going to get x equals 6. So that's my answer, x equals 6. Now it says find LSA. LSA would be this angle right here. Okay? Well, what do we know that's special about rhombuses? Okay? Well, we know that their sides are congruent. I'm sorry, all their sides are congruent. Yes, that's true. I know that their diagonals bisect opposite angles, and I know that their diagonals are perpendicular. So LSA, they're meeting, and this is actually perpendicular, so my answer is 90 degrees. Okay, so a lot of rules to remember. Make sure you are studying them. All right, last problem. All right, this last one is a square called Boxy. Okay, so let's go ahead and see BTY. So this angle right here is 10x. It's hard to read, sorry, 10x. Well, if you remember, a square is everything above it. And if we look carefully, a rhombus, just from the last problem, rhombus told us diagonals are perpendicular. This is a diagonal, so I know that these all form 90-degree angles. So that means this 10x should equal 90 degrees, which means x equals 9. Okay. Alright guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to postpone restarting my computer, and that is all. Thanks guys. Bye-bye.